Welcome to My Living with MS. In this week's podcast, I talk about a recent report from Scope highlighting the disability price tag, which is the extra cost of being disabled. Disability Price Tag 2023. In 2023, disabled people continue to face unfair extra costs. The higher cost of specialist equipment, higher usage of everyday essentials and energy, and an inadequate welfare system are all making it harder for disabled households to meet the extra cost of disability. Scope last published figures for the extra cost of disability in 2019. Since then, there has been a global pandemic, a cost of living crisis, and soaring prices. More households have fallen into poverty, and the number of disabled people out of work has increased. These factors have had a huge impact on the lives of disabled people. Since the last disability price tag report, there have been no action to tackle the extra cost of disability. We define extra costs as the additional amount of money a disabled household would need to have the same standard of living as a non-disabled household. Their analysis shows, on average, disabled households with at least one disabled adult or child need an additional £975 a month to have the same standard of living as non-disabled households. If this figure is updated to account for inflation over the current period, 2022-23, these extra costs rise to £1,122 per month. On average, the extra cost of disability is equivalent of 63% of household income after housing costs. The average extra costs rise to £1,248 per month, where there are two disabled adults in the household and at least two children. And for households with one disabled adult and one non-disabled adult and at least one child, the average cost is £634. These figures are accounting for disability benefit payments like personal independent payment, which are designed to help address these costs. The pressure on disabled households to meet these costs makes it harder to have a good standard of living. It makes it harder to build savings, and it makes it difficult to plan for the future. Addressing the disability price tag and reducing the extra cost of disability requires concerted action and commitment from government. We need a welfare system which provides a sufficient levels of support and to make sure disabled households have fair and affordable access to essential services. By working together to reduce and end the extra costs associated with disability, we can create a fairer and more equal society where everyone can participate and reach their potential. What are extra costs? Extra costs are the additional amount of money a disabled household would need to have the same standard of living as a non-disabled household. Disabled households have to divert their income to pay for specialist products and services, as well as pay more for the basics. These include spending on specialist disability-related products and services that are essential and often costly, and include things like specialist equipment, mobility aids, care or home adaptations, medicines and therapies, which are all expensive. Needing to spend more on everyday things, booking a holiday may lead to extra costs due to the lack of availability of accessible rooms. Limited mobility may mean needing to purchase more expensive ready meals or rely on the delivery of household goods. More. Higher usage of essentials. Many disabled households have to use more energy or extra accessible transport options. Extra costs do not just relate to money that has actually been spent, but also to purchases and services that disabled households have to go without because their available income has been used up on the basics. In other words, Not every disabled household is able to meet the extra cost of disability. Disability benefit payments like personal independence are designed to help offset these costs. However, even after taking PIP into account, the average disabled household, including at least one disabled adult or child, faces extra costs of £975 per month. Why is the extra cost of disability still so high? There are three main reasons why the extra costs of disability remain high: a stall in income and benefit levels. The extra cost of disability is a relative measure. Changes in income and the standard of living in both disabled and non-disabled households may cause an increase in the estimation of extra costs. Between 2016 and 17 and 2019-20, the poorest 20% of households saw their income fall by 11% in real terms. Once adjusted for inflation, many disabled households now have some of the lowest income levels in the country, with 33% of disabled people in the lowest household income group. On top of the stagnation of lower income growth, vital out-of-work benefits were frozen, such as universal credit and employment support allowance. The gap in poverty rates of disabled households versus non-disabled households widened in 2019-2020. And disability benefits such as cost of living payments, which were meant to help. However, people have said these payments were not enough to meet the increased costs they faced. This is my experience of living as a disabled person. I'm no longer able to work. Working has been a large part of my life, having worked from being 15 years old. Without giving you my CV. I've had a very varied work life, which was challenging. Though along the way, I picked up many friends, some of which I'm still in touch with today. Working gave me one of the most solid purposes I ever had in life. I love being around people. I love to achieve goals. I love being a boss and having a team of people working autonomously. If you followed me for a while, you will know I've made no secret of the fact I miss working and the people I worked with. And it still irks me. I got to a stage in my career when everything was finally coming together. I loved my job. And finally, I was being appreciated. And I was good at what I did. Plus, prior to becoming ill, I earned a decent salary with a company car. And even though I probably lived month to month, because you live within your means. If I wanted to go on holiday, it would only take a couple of months to get the money together. I didn't have to think about going out, be it for a meal, or many of the events that revolved around following rugby league and Hull FC. Whether it be an away trip to France or a ladies' night for a players' testimonial, or just drinks after a game, I was there. Money really wasn't an issue until multiple sclerosis became the deciding factor in me staying at work. Fast forward to 2023, I now live on benefits, universal credit, ESA and PIP, so there isn't really an option to even save for these things anymore. When I plan to go places but can't, I waste money, which I've often paid for tickets. In discussing the disability price tag, I also must look at how accessible the outside world is to me. And sadly, as per how this blog initially started, when it says it is, it often isn't. As an equality and diversity campaigner, I get asked from time to time to appear on local, national TV, radio. I can record some of my appearances over Zoom and Teams. However, when I've been asked to appear live, I often have to turn them down because of accessibility and the lack of support. i.e., I would need accessible transport and I would probably need somebody to go with me. Swimming and aqua aerobics were my stress buster when I was feeling down, anxious, or things were getting top of me. Paying for a private leisure pass now is beyond me. And I haven't attempted it for 5 years. as even though people have suggested how good it would be for me, they don't understand when I explain it's not even the swimming. However, on a positive note, I am delighted to be appointed by my local council as Ambassador for Leisure. Me, Ambassador for Leisure. But anyway, I will keep you up to date on that. What I miss most are those spontaneous times when I would just throw some makeup on and in 10 minutes be in a taxi and out the door for an afternoon of drinking, cocktails and eating out. Because if I want to go out now, it's like a military exercise, which can take all day to prepare for, along with the extra costs for accessible taxis. I never really considered this before, but because I am able to walk very far, I can't walk around a supermarket, so I need somebody to help me. Therefore, my costs are increased as I shop locally, which is more expensive. I have used supermarket delivery services previously, but they have minimum spends along with delivery costs, and I don't always have the spare money for a £45 shop, which can be £50 with delivery. Multiple sclerosis causes heat intolerance, which means I have to have fans on all the time if it's hot, along with the cold affecting my limbs, which means they don't work properly. So I can't really get cold either. So I have extra energy costs due to using the heating and also having fans on all summer. My disability requires me to use an aid to get about. Since becoming disabled, I've bought 2 mobility scooters, a transit wheelchair, a walker, various different walking aids, and a Speedy iGo, which is my electric wheelchair. Council wheelchair services will only provide an electric chair if you need one all the time. The only chair they could provide was self-propelling, which due to my muscle weakness and fatigue, I am unable to use. There's also repairs to wheelchairs and accessories. Replacement batteries cost around £250 each, and there's 2 of them. I have a wheelchair cozy, because have you sat in a wheelchair for any length of time when it's cold? A wheelchair waterproof, which you definitely need if it rains. Cup holders, and various other accessories which ensure I am comfortable. To book a holiday, I'd need an accessible room. And you'd be surprised how many rooms say they are accessible when they are not to the level I require. The last time I stayed in an accessible hotel room, it had a shower over the bath, which I couldn't get into, and a double bed to share with my carer. On complaining, they offered me a free stay, which was in the same inaccessible hotel. Accessible taxis cost more and aren't always available. Did you know there are no rulings in this council area for private hire accessible taxis and what they can charge, as I have found to my detriment in the past? Because the last one thought he was doing me a favour, and while costing the earth, also told me what time he could pick me up. Imagine how that makes you feel. Holiday insurance costs more due to pre-existing conditions, and many won't insure you without a diagnosis. I found this out when I wanted to go to Australia in 2017, and I didn't end up going because it was just too far to go without any protection. Finally, what needs to change? The current cost of living crisis has only increased the financial challenges faced by disabled households when it comes to extra costs. Action from government, companies and regulators has been promised but has not been delivered. Tackling the extra cost of disability must be seen as a political priority so that every disabled person can participate in society and reach their potential. Addressing the extra cost of disability requires action on multiple fronts. A commitment from the government to prioritise tackling the extra cost of disability This must first focus on designing a welfare system that lifts disabled households out of poverty, as well as accurately capturing the full range and type of extra costs faced by disabled people. The creation of an energy social tariff for disabled households, a discounted rate for disabled people who need to use more energy to target financial support to those who need it most. Action from regulators such as Ofgem and Ofcom to make sure that disabled people don't overpay for everyday essential services. Scope, with research partners, will be looking at the root causes and drivers of the extra costs of disability, exploring the relationship these costs have on disabled household finances, decision-making and standards of living. All of this with co-production with the disabled community. In summing up, the actual cost of multiple sclerosis disability is far greater than anyone could ever imagine. Please check out the blog post which accompanies this podcast and the link below for the full report. Feel free to share your own experiences in the comments below. A like and share and subscribe would also be great. Spread the word. You can also find me at Accessible Rach and at My Living with MS on Instagram, at My Living with MS on TikTok, at Accessible Rach on Facebook, and at York Socialist on Twitter. That's stories for another day. Thank you once again for listening, watching, reading, wherever you've consumed this podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.